I want to do something a little different today because I've been reading a lot of the messages and comments on social media platforms, and there is something definitely happening within the Sussex community that I don't think we should just brush it under the rug or just ignore it or not talk about it. Look, some people are shocked, right? Some are confused, some are angry, some are disappointed, and a few people are saying, listen, if Harry and Meghan are really taking Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet back to that abusive environment to live in Britain, even for an extended period of time, then I don't know if I can continue to support them, right? Why would they go back into that abusive environment? And when I read that, it really made me stop, right? Because I understand that reaction. I really, really do. After everything we have watched, after everything Meghan has endured, and and everything Prince Harry has told us about security and all of that, everything we learned about what happened inside that institution, and still the many things we don't know. Why would they go back, right? And it makes you feel a little bit anxious and anxiety because we care. Why would you walk back into a place that caused you so much pain? Those are fair questions. But I think there is another question we need to ask. And this one is not about Harry, it's not about Meghan, it's not about the kids, it's about us. Why do we support them? Why? Why do you support them? And what exactly does that support mean when they make a decision that we would not have made for them or we don't think it's the right decision? Because support and ownership are not the same thing. So that's what I want to discuss today. Welcome. This is Majesty's Sussex Report, and I'm Antonio. Thank you for spending some of your valuable time here with us. Here is the intro. Thank you for sticking around, and for those of you who are new subscribers, thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting this voice, this channel, and this work. I really do appreciate it. And for our members and legacy subscribers, listen, you are the GOAT. Thank you so very much. So let's get into today's topic, right? And before anything else, I want to acknowledge the emotion because I think some Sussex supporters feel almost betrayed by this news. Not because Harry and Meghan actually betrayed them, but because many supporters have spent years defending them, and we have watched the headlines. We watched Meghan be reduced to caricature after caricature. We watch stories about flowers and avocado and clothing and baby bumps and not her babies and friendships and all this nonsense, right? That they packaged and called it national controversies. We watched Harry fight newspapers in court. We watched him fight the British government over security. We heard him say in 2025 that he could not see a world in which he would bring his wife and children back to Britain under the circumstances then existing, right? That existed at that time. So that should give us a hint also, right? That perhaps things have changed, we just don't know about it. And now suddenly we are hearing they're going back. Not just Harry, but also Meghan, Archie, Lilibet, the whole family. Reuters, the Associated Press, and other major outlets are reporting that the Sussexes plan to establish a private resident outside London for an extended period, that Archie and Lilibeth will attend school in Britain, and that they intend to keep their California home and their property in Portugal. They are not returning as working royals. They are not moving into a royal residence. And importantly, Harry and Meghan themselves have not issued a detailed public explanation or confirmed telling us why they are making this decision. And listen, we're not, they don't owe us anything, to be quite honest, right? So there are enormous gaps in our knowledge. And I think those gaps are where some of this emotion is living. Because when we don't know, we fill in the blanks. Sometimes we hope, sometimes we fear, and sometimes with the worst possible explanation, right? We always think about the worst. Let me tell you something about why I am here. I did not become a Sussex supporter because I needed another celebrity to admire. I usually don't really admire celebrities. I didn't wake up one morning and decide, oh, well, Prince Harry seems lovely. Let me build a podcast around him. That wasn't it. And Meghan wasn't simply an actress I decided to follow. For me, something much deeper happened. I watched a biracial woman enter one of the whitest, oldest, and most traditional institutions in Britain. And then I watched how she was discussed, how she was described, how she was scrutinized. And there was something, well, more than something, there are many things of that treatment that I recognized. Not because my life is Megan's life, it isn't. Not because our circumstances are remotely identical, they are not. But because when you come from a multiracial or biracial family, there are moments when you recognize certain codes immediately. And I would even argue if you are a minority of any type. The question beneath the question, the suspicion beneath the compliment, the subtle message that are given to you, right? Which are, who do you think you are? How did you get here? Do you really belong here? You're not one of us. And eventually, perhaps you should leave. That resonated with me. Absolutely. It reminded me of stories from my own family, from my own experience. It reminded me of what can happen when people cross boundaries that society once believed should remain fixed: race, class, culture, marriage, belonging. So my support was never fundamentally geographic. I did not support Harry and Meghan because they lived in California or London. I supported what I believed they represented and still represent: service, family, human dignity, mental wellness, standing against a media culture that can dehumanize people for profit, building something after losing something, using whatever platform you have to leave something useful behind. That is why I am here, to call out injustice. So, whether they lived in Montecito, in London, Lisbon, New York, Paris, or a cottage on the moon, it doesn't really determine whether those values still exist. The geography is not the principle, the values are. Look, to me, I don't agree with all the decisions that my friends make. I've got a very close knit set of friends. And ever so often, one of my friends will make a decision or do something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did you do that? Or why are you making that decision? But I don't stop being their friend. I may give them advice if they ask for it and give them my opinion, but I don't just stop. being their friend just because they're making a decision that I may not agree with. I still walk the path with them. And if they do fall, if something does happen, I am right there to help them, right there to support them. But my wish is that I hope that the decision that they're making is the right one. And I hope that I am proven wrong. And this is where I think we need to examine ourselves with some tenderness, right? I don't want to lecture anyone. That's not my intention. It's not my job. I don't want to call anybody a bad supporter, right? Who am I to judge? And I certainly don't want to tell anyone that they are not entitled to be disappointed. You are. You're entitled. If you have watched this story for 6 years, your immediate reaction is, I don't understand this. That's legitimate. If your reaction is, I think this is a terrible idea, you are allowed to think that too. But there is a difference between saying, I don't agree with this decision, and saying, because they made a decision I disagree with, they have failed me. Because Harry and Meghan did not ask us to manage their marriage. They did not ask us to raise their children. They did not ask us to negotiate their security arrangements or decide where Archie and Lily goes to school, right? And none of us are sitting at their kitchen table. We don't hear the conversations after the children go to bed. We don't meet with their lawyers. We don't sit with their security advisors. We don't see intelligence information that they might be receiving. We don't know what conversations have taken place with the king. We don't know what arrangements may have been made privately. We don't know. We don't know what Archie or Lily wants. We really do not know what Meghan has concluded after 6 years away. We don't know what Harry has concluded after 6 years away from the UK. We know pieces of the story that is being told to us. We know we have interviews, we've read the books, court documents, public appearances, news reports, their work, their philanthropy, their words. But that is not the same thing as knowing them. And I think we have to keep that boundary because the moment support becomes, I support you as long as you make the choices I would make for you, that isn't really support anymore. It starts becoming possession rather than support. Now, think about this. The people who left are not the people who may be returning, right? And this for me is perhaps the most important part. 2026 Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are not the 2020 Harry and Meghan. Think about that. When they entered royal life together, they were trying to make something work. They were optimistic. They were newly married. They were building a family. They appeared to believe there was space inside the institution for them to create a particular kind of royal life. Then reality arrived. Conflict with courtiers, conflict with the press, family tensions, security concerns, briefings, leaks, lawsuits, and ultimately departure. Whatever else people believe about Harry and Meghan, 6 years have now passed. 6 years, my friends. In those 6 years of learning, 6 years of lawyers, 6 years of security professionals, 6 years of dealing with international media, of building businesses, of litigation, of understanding how stories travel, 6 years of discovering who speaks to whom, 6 years of learning where the doors are, where the exits are, where the boundaries must be. So if they return to Britain, right? It's a different mindset. They are not entering that environment with the same innocence, right? The same naivete, perhaps, they may have possessed before. That does not mean that the British media, the British press has changed overnight. Reuters described their return today as a return to the press lion's den. And that is what they sought to escape the last time, right? The media hostility Harry has complained about for years has not simply vanished, but Harry and Meghan have changed, and knowledge matters. There is an enormous difference between walking into a difficult environment without understanding it and walking into it knowing exactly what it is. This time they know the terrain. This time they have their own income. They're not dependent on the firm or the institution. They own their own businesses. They have their own investments. They own their own communications infrastructure, lawyers, security professions, right? They own homes elsewhere. And perhaps most importantly, they can leave. They can pack their things and leave and go somewhere else. That matters because they are reportedly keeping Montecito. They are keeping their home in Portugal. Britain is not their only door. That alone changes the power dynamic dramatically. They are not trapped, my friends. And perhaps that is something we are forgetting. I completely understand because we've all gone on this journey, right? And it's literally saying, and some of the stuff that I've read, some people, oh, you're going back into this abusive relationship, right? I completely get it, but there is a difference, and I will explain that later by telling you a little bit of a story. And I want us to be mindful about this, right? To be really careful about the things we say, especially the things you think that you need to type and expose to social media. Because then in some ways it kind of becomes almost a poisoned pill, a poisoned pen. So if Megan returns, right? I mean, it seems imminent that they are returning. So let's say Megan returns to Britain. That does not mean the treatment she described never happened. If Harry spends more time with his father, that does not mean every family grievance disappears. If Archie and Lilibet attend school in Britain, that does not invalidate Harry's security fight. Meghan walks through London smiling. It does not mean that every article written about her was suddenly acceptable. Human relationships do not work like court verdicts. People return to cities where they experienced pain. People reconcile with parents who hurt them, or friends. People establish boundaries with relatives while still loving them. People return to countries they once needed distance from. Life is complicated, right? And I think one of the traps we fall into with public figures is demanding narrative purity. We want the story to make perfect sense to us and how we see it through our own interpretation, right? We need to have clear boundaries: the villain, the victim, the escape, the happy moments, roll the credits. But real human beings don't live like that. Sometimes you can love someone and remain disappointed in them. Sometimes you can forgive without forgetting. You can return without surrendering. You can rebuild a relationship without pretending it was never broken. So Megan does not owe us absolutely anything, right? She doesn't owe us to have permanent exile from the UK. in order to prove that her pain was real. Harry does not owe us permanent estrangement from his father or his family to prove that the family have conflicts and they're not the greatest family. There's a lot of dysfunction there. And neither of them owe us a life frozen in 2020 at all. And then they are the children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. And I think this deserves more consideration than it is receiving. Whatever your opinion of monarchy, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet occupy a real place within British royal history. These are not titles invented by Sussex supporters on Twitter. Buckingham Palace recognizes them as Prince Archie of Sussex and Princess Lilibet of Sussex. The royal family's own website identifies Archie as seventh in line and Lilibet as eighth in line to the throne. Their titles became applicable after Charles became king under the long-standing rules governing grandchildren of the sovereign, and Buckingham Palace updated its website after Prince Harry and Meghan began publicly using the children's titles in 2023. Now, I would be very careful about making sweeping claims about them being the first biracial children ever connected to the monarchy. Royal history is complicated, and historians debate aspects of race and ancestry going back centuries. So, you know, I can make that claim, but it is important to note it. We don't need to actually say it, we don't need to make the claim. What we can say is already significant. They are the children of a biracial American woman and the king's younger son. They are part of the current House of Windsor. They are in line, the line of succession. They have British royal titles, and Britain is part of their heritage. So perhaps their parents believe that knowing that country matters, not knowing Britain through newspapers, not knowing Britain through arguments on social media, actually knowing it, the countryside, the cities, the history, their father's childhood, their grandmother's Diana's legacy, knowing their grandfather, their cousins, their family stories, because Harry's history belongs to those children too. And if Harry and Meghan decided that Archie and Lilibet should understand that part of themselves firsthand, then who are we, right? I don't think supporters should automatically interpret that as surrender to the monarchy. It may actually be the opposite. It may be an assertion. You cannot erase our children from a history to which they belong because we know how those children were treated, how long it took them to add the titles, right? We know this campaign that has been existing saying that the children don't even exist, that they're not Meghan's. We know the campaign that has been existing to say, oh no, take their titles away. We know Meghan's concern that she said, and I'm paraphrasing here on the Oprah interview, that there was likely discussions as to how they might not give Archie at the time the title of prince. So it's important for the children to be in the UK. That's another consideration. Quick correction to what I previously said. Prince Archie is sixth in line, and Princess Lilibet is seventh in line of succession. I also want to say something specifically about Meghan, because sometimes even supporters talk about her as though she has no agency. They're 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 taking Meghan back. Harry is bringing her back. How can they make her go through this again? I mean, hold on. This is Meghan Sussex we're talking about. Whatever else anyone thinks about her, this is not a woman who appears incapable of saying no. This is the same woman that told the future king, "Get your fingers out of my face," right? This is a woman who built a career before Prince Harry. This is a woman that when Prince Harry had a little bit of I'm going to call it a tantrum, or yelled at her because he was angry at something, and she just stopped whatever she was doing. She's like, "Okay, so I was roasting this chicken for you and making dinner. I'm going to stop it." She stopped it, and she went and she just walked away. And when he approached her, she said, "You're not going to speak to me like that. No, 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 you're not. And if you want this that we have to continue, you are going to seek out therapy. Because great, you and I can talk about your issues, but you're going to need professional help to work through your issues, because what just happened 5, 10 minutes ago is not happening again. You're not ever speaking to me like that." That's a woman that has agency. So don't tell me that she doesn't. And even more so now, because she understands completely what that institution does, right? This is a woman who entered perhaps the most protocol heavy family on earth from outside that world. A woman who ultimately walked away from, quote unquote, being a working royal life when she determined it was not suitable. A woman now running her own commercial ventures. So perhaps we should extend to her the same autonomy we claim to admire. If Meghan is returning to Britain with her family, perhaps Meghan has decided she can handle Britain. Perhaps she has boundaries now that she didn't have before. Perhaps she has conditions. She has protections. Perhaps she has simply decided, "I will not allow hostile newspapers to determine where my children may live." I mean, think about it. Because there would be it would be a strange irony in this. For years, critics effectively told her, "Go away, go home." And she went away. Then they criticized everything she built elsewhere. They didn't stop. It hasn't stopped. And now, if she chooses to come back, some supporters might, you know, unintentionally join those critics in telling her, "Hey, hey, no, 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 you're not allowed to go there. You're not allowed. No, 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 you're not allowed." And I understand the concern. I really do. But who are we? At some point, Megan has to be allowed to choose her own life. This is her life, her family, not ours. Now, somebody listening may say, "But Antonio, I still think they're making a big mistake. This is the wrong thing for them to do." And listen to me carefully. That is fine. You may be right. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe in 6 months, Harry and Meghan will say, "This was a terrible idea." Maybe they will spend several years in Britain. Maybe this is just for the one school year. Maybe they'll just enjoy their transatlantic lifestyle. I don't know. Or maybe another decision that they need to make will change everything. None of us really know. But trust does not mean believing that Harry and Meghan are incapable of making mistakes and of making the right decisions for their family. They're human beings, right? Of course, they can make mistakes. Of course, they can make the wrong decisions, but they're also capable of making the right decisions based on what their family needs are and based on the plans that they may have that we are not privy to, right? Trust means accepting that they are entitled to make decisions using information we do not possess. There is a difference. I can trust someone's judgment and still disagree with a decision. I can support someone's right to choose and still say, I wouldn't have done that. That is mature support. And if their fundamental values someday changes, then listen, then yes, absolutely yes. I'd be like, okay, thank you for the journey, thank you for the ride, but the things that you stand for now are not the same things that my value system stands for. If the things you believe they represent disappear, if their actions begin fundamentally contradicting the principles that made you support them, then you have every right to say, this is where I get off. This is where I'm going to pull and say, stop getting off here. Nobody owes a public figure lifelong loyalty, but a change of postal code, or right, a school decision, a complicated relationship with an aging parent, with the media, with an institution. Those things by themselves do not tell me that Meghan and Harry have suddenly become different people. It truly has not. I saw a comment that said, um, this decision is going to lead them to divorce. And I thought, come on, come on, folks. You know, if you're calling yourself a Sussex supporter, right? Be mindful, even if you think that, be mindful of of putting it into the ether, putting it into the universe, because those things have energy, and you putting that out there, you're basically joining, you know, the naysayers and the derangers in wishing them not the best. So I want you to think about something, and I genuinely want to hear from you in the comment section. Why did you become a Sussex supporter? Why did you decide, I'm going to support, the Sussexes, and I'm going to defend them? Why? Was it because of Prince Harry? Was it because of Meghan? Was it the treatment of Meghan by the press, by the institution? Was it because of racism, misogyny, their charitable work, Invictus, mental health, because of their marriage, their story, their willingness to walk away? Was it something in their story that connected with something in your own story? And then ask yourself a second question, okay? Does their reported return to Britain actually change that thing? Does it? Because again, I hear you. I hear you. It's sort of like someone saying, right? They left the um, asylum. What's it called? Asylum. They left the madhouse, right? And they told us about all the nutty things and the crazy things and what goes on in the madhouse. And then 6 years later, they tell us, hey, by the way, I'm heading back into the madhouse. But you see, now we have to pay attention to this, because the first time they were in the madhouse, they didn't know even that it was a madhouse. 6 years have passed. They're heading back into it, but they're prepared. They're prepared. They understand now how to deal with A, B, C, and D. They have knowledge of W, X, Y, and Z. You get what I'm trying to say here? So, does their reported return to Britain actually change that thing for which you started supporting them? Not. Do I like the decision? That's a different thing. Does it change the reason you supported them? Right? For me, today it doesn't, because my support was never based upon requiring Meghan to remain thousands of miles away from Britain forever. In fact, I don't want the British press to have that kind of power over her life. Think about the contradiction. We say the press drove Meghan out of Britain, right? Then, if Meghan decides she is strong enough to return, are we going to say, no, you cannot come back because the press might attack you? Then the press still controls where she can live, where she can go, what she can do. Now, she hasn't been in Britain. Have they stopped attacking her? They haven't, right? They haven't. Maybe freedom looks like being able to leave, to stay, to do what the heck you want to do. And maybe another kind of freedom looks like knowing you can return whenever you want to without belonging to the people who once made you leave. You get what I'm trying to say? 6 years ago, Prince Harry and Meghan left Britain under extraordinary circumstances. Today, according to multiple reports, they are preparing to return with two children who were much younger or not even born when that first chapter closed. And perhaps some supporters are looking at this through the eyes of 2020. But Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are not standing in 2020 anymore. Neither are we. They now know more. They have lived more. They have lost things. They have built things, won battles, lost battles. They're raising their children. They've watched the father become king, watched the father develop cancer, fought newspapers, fought government decisions, built businesses, and built a life beyond the institution. So perhaps the most important thing about their reported return is not that they are going back. Perhaps it is who is going back. Not two people asking an institution for permission to build a life. These are two people who already build one, not people without options. They're people with options, not people dependent upon a palace for their identity. People arriving with identities established elsewhere. And maybe that changes everything. I don't know why they're doing it, right? I don't have the answer. I have speculation, I have ideas. And Harry and Meghan don't owe us any explanation at all. Any at all. You don't know why they're doing this. The royal commentators don't know everything either. They don't know. And perhaps we never will. But support cannot mean demanding access to every private calculation, every private plan. And love for somebody's story cannot become ownership of its next chapter. So if you're angry, I hear you. If you are worried, so am I. I truly understand you. If you think it's a mistake, just say so. Say I think it's a mistake, but I'm going to still walk with them. But before you decide that Harry and Meghan have somehow betrayed everything you believed about them, ask yourself one question. Did their values change? Or did their circumstances change? Because those are not the same thing. Meghan does not owe us exile to prove that what happened to her was wrong. Harry does not owe us estrangement to prove that he was hurt. They don't. Perhaps returning does not mean surrender, does not mean reconciliation, right? We don't know. Support is solidarity, it is not custody. All right, so here we are. Here we are. Thank you for hanging in. And for those of you who've made it to this point, thank you once again. Look, I hope today's presentation gave you something useful to think about and maybe brought a little more perspective to everything that is happening. And I want to end with, with this. As Sussex supporters, you are entitled to feel however you feel about this decision. You may not like it. You may not understand it. You may think it is the wrong decision, and that is okay. But some of the things I have seen written on other platforms have gone beyond disappointment. Some of it has been genuinely hurtful and, quite frankly, unnecessarily cruel. And if you find yourself in that place, I would simply ask you to search your heart, search your soul, and go back to the beginning. Why did you support Harry and Meghan in the first place? Was it because they always made the decisions you wanted them to make? Or was it because they was something in who they are, what they have stood for, and the work they have done, the way they have tried to live their lives that connected with something in you? Because at the end of the day, this is not our life. It is not. It really isn't. We are not sitting at their table. We are not in the conversations with their security people, their lawyers and family or others, right? We do not know everything that is in front of them. We don't know all the doors that have opened. We don't know all the doors that have closed. We don't know what information they have and that we don't have. So yes, you can disagree. You can say I would never do that. But I hope we can get to a place where disagreement does not become cruelty. I mean, I've seen some really, really disappointing things, you know, because it is, I don't want disappointment, right, to become abandonment. And where we can still celebrate them, uplift them, and support the things they continue to stand for, even when the path they choose is not the path we would have chosen for them. Their mission is not over, my friends. Their story is not over. Perhaps this is simply another chapter. And for those of us who believe that there is purpose in the path, right? That 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 their path is still continuing. Perhaps we can also leave some room for the possibility that God may be leading them somewhere we do not presently understand. And if that is the case, then perhaps our role is not to demand that we should understand everything immediately. Perhaps our role is simply to keep our hearts open, to watch, to pray, to hope that they are safe, to hope that their children are happy, and to wish them well as they walk whatever road comes next. That is where I am. I may have questions. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I still believe in extending to them the very thing we have spent years asking others to give them: the freedom to live their own lives. And on that note, before I get emotional, I want to say just thank you. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you. I really mean it. I have another episode that I finished writing um, earlier this morning, and it has to do with the possibility of geopolitical reasons as to why, um, as part of why this move is happening. I think there's a part that most of us may have not considered. And again, it's just a possibility. It's just something that, of all the things that might be influencing their decision, this is just another one that I want to bring to you. So look out for that, okay? Um, and look, breathe, okay? Breathe. Please take care of yourselves and be kind to yourselves. Be kind to your loved ones, and to that stranger crossing your path, be kind to them too. I love you, folks. Okay? God bless. Until we speak again. Mwah.
We don't know every door they see. We don't know what tomorrow brings. You can love them and still disagree. You can wonder what you cannot see. Not every road will make sense today. Sometimes faith means letting people choose their way. We weren't in the room, we don't know every plan. So hold a little grace for what we don't understand. Let them walk their road, let them choose their way. Love doesn't disappear when we don't agree today. Lift them up in love, keep the light aglow. You don't have to understand to let them walk their road. Words can wound when disappointment speaks. So search your heart before the anger leads. Their story isn't finished. This is just another page. Maybe what looks like going backward is a door to something changed. We can pray for peace. We can pray they're safe. We can trust that God still moves in ways